Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Trail Mix, where the nuts might be a little stale, but the company is always fresh.
Craig Crawford here, a retired journalist working for nothing but the truth and Social Security checks. And we're remembering Rob Reiner here to get started. Got some other news going on. The New World Order in Europe. But Rob Reiner, our friend Rebellious Renee on Trail Mix at trailmix.cc, if anyone wants to visit us, puts up these memes on occasion, and she put this one up because as we remember Rob Reiner, and I don't want to get into the details of this horrible crime. Apparently, the alleged murderer is his own son, but his political contributions, and I call them contributions, are going to be worth remembering in addition to his entertainment, because he kept his eye on the ball. You read this right here from his quotes about, in particular, he stayed focused on racism and our leaders who encourage racism or enable it, I guess it might be one way of putting it. But anyway, we might get back to that if some others come on and want to talk about it. But in the meantime, we're going to go over here to Europe, and Zelensky is meeting in Berlin with the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, another real estate developer, and might be giving up. He's already hinted he's given up their dreams of joining NATO. So the concern now is how much more is he giving up? And how much of Europe are we going to abandon in the end? Because Donald Trump is no friend of Europe.
25, Ukrainian and U.S. officials convened in Berlin for extensive and high-level talks aimed at negotiating a settlement to the ongoing war in Ukraine. The day began with U.S. envoys engaging in closed-door discussions with Ukrainian delegates at a central hotel, focusing on reviewing draft proposals and potential compromises to move the peace process forward. Later, the delegation relocated to the German Chancellery, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky joined the talks alongside German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, for roundtable discussions. The meetings lasted over 5 hours, during which officials explored security guarantees, ceasefire measures, and the framework for future negotiations. Ukrainian presidential advisor Dmytro Litvin confirmed that the talks concluded with an agreement to resume the discussions the following morning, while neither the Ukrainian nor U.S. side issued immediate statements, as the draft documents remain under consideration. These high-level discussions reflect the continued commitment of Ukraine, the United States, and key European allies to work toward a resolution of one of Europe's most significant conflicts since World War II. And Zelensky is expected to provide additional comments once the next round of talks is completed, highlighting the ongoing international effort to secure peace and stability in the region.
Hello, Chancellor. Good to see you. How are you? Welcome to Berlin. Good. Thank you. Great meeting. Good to see you. Good to see you. President Zelensky. How are you doing? Good, right? Yeah. Good, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you, President. Good to see you. Good to see you. So, why don't we have a brief... Warm welcome to the Chancellery and to Berlin. From Ukraine, the negotiators from the US, and we
And we've also
And a
got
stunning reversal for Europe.
the ministers, the finance ministers
Kyriakos has
are
been
meeting,
elected
but
as
we won't get
Eurogroup
into that at the
president.
moment.
The
what we
European
will
Union
get
and Kiev
into
have
is
drawn up an action plan to propel Ukraine on its path to EU
we
membership.
have the
The aim is to
EU
bypass
foreign
Hungary's
policy
political
chief
veto.
doing a press conference
Bulgaria's Prime Minister Rosen
here
Zhelyazkov
shortly.
resigned after tens of
Here she
thousands
is.
of Bulgarians joined protests over allegations
to the peace plan and the international stabilization force, but we need approval from Israeli side. We're also working on Palestinian Authority reform, humanitarian aid and reconstruction. And on the latter, it's clear that we need to have a say how the money is being spent. Ministers also discussed Sunday's anti-Semitic attacks in Australia. European position is very clear.
So we got meetings going on all over Europe.
The
today.
rise of
This
anti-Semitism
foreign
anywhere in the
ministers are
world
meeting in
must be
Brussels.
condemned.
Zelensky's meeting with
1 year
Kushner
after then we also discussed
Witkoff in
Syria,
Berlin,
and that was the main focus of our Middle East discussion this time. So after 1 year, Assad's regime fell 1 year ago,
Chancellor
and Syria still faces enormous challenges. Sectarian violence, lack of inclusivity, lack of proper institutions,
Zelensky
rule of law.
pretty much
These are
abandoned
problems
any
that
idea
are
of
still there.
joining
The killing of
NATO,
US
which is a
soldiers
big
by ISIS
concession on his
terrorists
part
Saturday was a
that
brutal
the
reminder
president
of that.
has
And we discussed
pushed for some
the state
time
of
now.
Syria's transition and how we could better support
I
governance,
get the impression that
security sector reform,
Zelensky's caving
and
into
trade.
that.
Let me
We'll look at
remind
some
you
of
that
the
European
videos
Union
we've
was the
done
first
lately
one to lift
on
sanctions
this
to
topic,
help a country to
starting over the
rebuild.
weekend.
But lifting sanctions
Me and
alone
Jack
does
had a
not
chat
bring economic
about the whole
prosperity.
thing, and
We
here's
need,
a
investors need to
look
trust
at
the
some of
legal
that.
system. Investors
The
need to
United
be
States, under the
sure
Trump
that the
administration and the
situation
Kremlin
is stable and
share
will not
one
get
rather
out of
important
hand. We are
strategic
now
goal in
also
foreign policy,
adjusting
which
the
they both believe
Syria sanctions
that a weak
regime
European Union or even a
situation evolves.
disintegrated European
Ministers
Union is a preferable foreign policy goal. And the Kremlin is pleased, and they've made very clear, not just with Trump's Politico interview, but also with the national security strategy. The Kremlin is broadly aligned with the goals that are elucidated there. Now, usually, in this environment, if the Kremlin says they like what you're doing, you probably should rethink what you're doing. And certainly European leaders, almost all of them, perhaps not Viktor Orban in Hungary, but almost all of them, are going to be deeply concerned about what they've heard from the Trump as president, as also from the Trump administration over the past few days, that feels like the United States is becoming an adversary.
Sometimes I can't tell if I'm on live or on tape. That was Ian Bremmer with the Eurasia Group, who was really laying it out strong. What I don't think a lot of Americans are focused on is Trump's abandoning Europe, and Europe knows it. They're all abuzz about it. Question is why, and what that does for national security of our country. Our own national security is kind of an issue in these discussions, should be anyway. But what's happening is Trump and Putin are hooking up in support of right-wing parties all over Europe with the aim of maybe even disassembling NATO. And here we have Jack make that point pretty strong in our chat over the weekend.
Trump and Putin, kind of, if you do the little, circle, Venn diagram circles, where they come together is right there in the right-wing parties in Europe. And they're both supporting.
And then you have the whole question of what is the bigger game here, because another theory we've been kicking around on Trail Mix is that what Trump is up to is basically letting Putin take over Europe. Plenty of indications he's fine with China taking over Asia, maybe even Japan, Singapore. And then what he gets in the deal is control of all the Americas, North and South America, Canada, Greenland, the Panama Canal, Venezuela, all of it, where you have basically three kings, a three-king world. Russia over Europe, China over Asia, and the U.S. over the Americas. Now, that's something to talk about, whether that's a good idea or not. I'm not saying it didn't. It doesn't sound great to me, but I'd be interested in anybody who thinks otherwise. But here's where we laid out over the weekend this overall scenario. It makes sense for what Trump's doing in, well, we'll start with Venezuela, but even the stuff that he said about Greenland and Canada. He has this worldview that Europe belongs to Russia, Asia belongs to China, and all of the Americas belong to me. I think that's his worldview.
Yep, very 19th century.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a very limited view. In that previously, basically, the United States, after World War II, viewed that they owned the world.
And then when you start doing some polls over in Europe, they're starting to worry that we're actually their enemy. I mean, here's some startling numbers from Denmark.
The world fractured. A new global order emerges, dominated by three powers.
Stop calling Trump's foreign policy chaos. It's actually a map. He told Putin do whatever the hell he wants in Europe. He told Taiwan pay up like it's an insurance policy. China gets Asia and the Americas. Well, that becomes Trump's personal fortress. We're breaking down the New World Order live.
Denmark. Danish put out an intelligence report this week that was pretty darn stunning, talking about the threat they see in the U.S. To their own security, to all of Europe's security. I mean, it seems kind of fantastical to over here, perhaps, to a lot of Americans, that Europeans are beginning to seriously wonder if Trump is turning the U.S. from their protector to their enemy. But here are the numbers I was talking about from Denmark.
New polling data has revealed that nearly half of Danes now view the United States as a threat, and 3/4 oppose the sale of Greenland. The research by YouGov comes after weeks of tensions between Denmark, Greenland and the US over Donald Trump's repeated assertions that he plans to take control of the autonomous territory, which is part of the Danish kingdom. The YouGov survey found that 46% of Danes believe the US poses a very big or fairly big threat, surpassing concerns about North Korea or Iran. 78% said that they...
Now, did you catch that? They got a poll saying that most Danes are more worried about America as a threat to them than North Korea and Iran. That's pretty stunning. And let's go to what Donald Trump's been saying lately on all of this. He's actually taking things a bit further and suggesting or saying that maybe there's some countries in NATO that just shouldn't be part of NATO. Now, he specifically in this article, this is an interview that he did in Politico, brings up Turkey as one that not getting along. And the National Security Strategy Report the administration recently did said a very, very shocking thing, really. They changed the whole idea of NATO from being a military alliance, which has always been its purpose as a counter to Russian threats, to some sort of cultural alliance. Because what they're now saying is that, and this is in an official report put out by the Trump administration, that Europe the NATO alliance should be more about a cultural alliance, or at least part of it, not just a military alliance. And the reason that's significant is what they're arguing is that as NATO countries, and they single out France and Germany, some of the big boys in NATO, that their populations are changing with the influx of migrants from the third world. Basically, they're not calling it that, but that's what they mean. That the influx of migrants to these countries is changing the cultural, in other words, they're becoming non-white. They are essentially arguing that as European countries become less white, they shouldn't be in NATO. Now let that sink in. And if anybody wants to argue with me, if that's what they're saying, go right at it and show me where I'm wrong, because this is what they're saying. And Vice President J.D. Vance's speeches and this national security report they recently put out, and what Trump's talking about here in this Politico interview, and it's another way of undermining NATO. And for what purpose, you might wonder? Well, it might actually be an alignment with Putin's aim of diluting the impact or even disbanding NATO so that he can take over European countries, particularly, the Baltics. And that's where these folks are going. And I don't know if Americans are going to get concerned about it or not, or if they should. But it's something that's going on that might be the most important thing happening in our world today, that that will be remembered 50 years from now, unlike some of the things we spend our time thinking about, worrying about. And so today, Zelensky and the German leader are meeting and are going to be doing a press conference here pretty soon. I've got that teed up. I'm going to run that. And then on this question of immigration, this is the sort of discussions that are going on in Europe. They're kind of similar to ours. This is an alliance here about migrant smuggling that is discussed in Europe, and this is the foreign minister of the European Commission talking about that. And
conference with a story.
I think it's important because
it is a story of suffering,
issues,
but it is also a story of justice.
And
it is set not far from here,
happening
in a tribunal hall in the Netherlands. Just last month, the trial against the alleged ringleader of an international smuggling network began.
Migrant smuggling.
And in the packed courthouse, the victims of these alleged crimes had a chance to speak up. They testified about the unspeakable violence they suffered on their trip from Africa to Europe. It was a litany of horror stories, torture, rape, starvation, murder, weeks and months of systematic abuse. Nothing can erase the memory of such suffering. But today, the criminal network responsible for those crimes has been dismantled. So there's hope that justice will be served. And this is thanks to strong international cooperation. European and African countries have joined forces, from the Netherlands to Italy, the UK, Libya, Ethiopia, you just name it, many, many more. It was a global team effort. And this is the spirit that brings us here today. 2 years ago, we pledged to build a global alliance to counter migrant smuggling. And our guiding principle here in the European Union is that we Europeans decide who comes to Europe and crosses our borders and under what circumstances, and not the smugglers and traffickers. So in the last 2 years, the European Union has overhauled its migration policy. Just this week, after intense work, we adopted the first ever solidarity measures. These kickstart the implementation of our Pact on Migration and Asylum. The Council also adopted a common position on returns and safe countries. This opens the door for negotiations with the European Parliament, and I welcome these crucial milestones. These are more examples of how Europe is managing migration responsibly. And the figures speak for themselves. Since the start of this year, numbers have fallen by 26% on key routes, and this is on top of the 37% drop on the same routes in 2024.
Why?
And we are fighting the smugglers and traffickers with all
EU
means. Last year alone, we seized more than 12 million euros of illegal assets in Europe, from boats to firearms.
Parties.
But I must say, unraveling
supported by Putin and Trump,
the networks remains extremely challenging. It's not, as you know, enough to target one link in the smuggling chain.
This is Putin's
we must go after the entire network.
Undermining NATO.
And this is why at this conference,
the voters of the great European
we take the global alliance to the next level.
For failing to control
today,
immigration.
We are endorsing a joint declaration.
So what you're
it is a blueprint
is this foreign minister
to bring an end to the migrant smuggling business model across the world.
They've got migration.
And as you know, it is built on 3 principles. The first is we must prevent the journeys offered by the migrant smugglers. The second pillar is we must respond to the smugglers' evolving business model. And finally, the third pillar, we must show potential victims that there are always safer alternatives. Now, on the first point, our goal is to prevent the illegal journeys offered by migrants, by smugglers. Every smuggling trip avoided is potentially a life saved. And prevention is a vital part of the comprehensive partnership we are building. The core of these partnerships is to attract investment and build local jobs so that many more of your citizens can find opportunities at home. And as we do so, we also invest more in migration management, in border control, in the fight against smuggling. In parallel, we must do more to warn people about the risks of illegal crossings. And this is why we want to join forces with you on rapid response information campaigns, each tailored to the local audience and deployed at short notice. And there, countries of origin have a crucial role to play to help design these campaigns in an effective manner and ensure they speak directly to those who need to hear this message and hear that the alternative is always the better choice. Most of these risky trips are advertised online. And this is why the digital dimension of our work is key. For years, we have worked with digital platforms to target online drug trafficking, to target terrorist propaganda, to target child abuse. Now, since last May, we're doing the same on migrant smuggling, because what's illegal offline must be illegal online. Europol is developing a new operational guidance to detect smuggling content online. And this should help law enforcement agencies?
Going to move now to German public television on the ongoing Ukraine negotiations, which really are coming to a head right now and not getting as much coverage around here as maybe they should. But here's the latest as the Ukraine talks in Berlin have stretched into the second day and seem to be coming to some sort of conclusion, one of which is Zelensky already giving up on Ukraine's hopes to join NATO.
The second day of talks aimed at bringing a peaceful end to Russia's invasion of Ukraine are underway here in Berlin. Roadblocks and other security measures are in place across the German capital. Thousands of officers have been deployed from all over the country. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived yesterday and met with US envoy Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Discussions are continuing today. President Zelensky has already said he's ready to drop Ukraine's bid to join NATO in return for legally binding security guarantees from the West. The leaders of Germany, France, and the UK are expected to join later. Let's see what's expected and let's see what's happened with our correspondents in Ukraine, Nick Connolly, and here in Kiev, our political correspondent, Julia Saudelli. Welcome both. Julia, let's start with you and what came out of yesterday's discussions.
Well, the talks yesterday between the Ukrainian and the U.S. side lasted for over 5 hours. So they went through the afternoon and the evening, but we didn't hear yet what exactly was discussed. We've heard from the U.S. side that the 20-point peace plan was discussed, but there were no concrete conclusions coming out of those talks yet. We've heard that the Ukrainian and U.S. delegations are meeting again right now before Ukraine and President Zelensky is expected here in the building behind me to meet with Germany's President Steinmeier. But we heard before the meetings even started yesterday from Ukrainian President Zelensky that he said that Ukraine is ready to renounce its bid to join NATO and that this would be a very big compromise for Ukraine and that this would be actually a step, however, that they would be willing to make to try to bring the negotiations forward. We know also that Ukraine for giving up this bid would want then security guarantees coming from the US and from its European partners. And also another issue that is likely to be discussed is territorial concessions. We know that the US plan originally that was redacted after having spoken directly with Putin wanted Ukraine to give up the parts of Donetsk that it still controls to Russia. That is something that Ukraine does not want to do. And this is another sticking point in the negotiations that is likely being discussed today.
Okay, so straight to Nick Connolly in Kiev. Nick, yet more talks. How are these being perceived there in Ukraine?
Look, Phil, I think people do realize that this is more important and that there's more at stake than previous rounds. The fact that Zelensky is meeting Witkoff, who is de facto Donald Trump's most important negotiator, point person on these talks, is a big deal. Previously, you had the Ukrainians at a lower level, albeit speaking to more junior people on the US side, and Witkoff was basically only talking to the Russians and maybe the Europeans at times, or you had the Ukrainians talking to Keith Kellogg, who's basically been sidelined, who was the Ukraine emissary. So that is important, and the fact that we're getting all these briefings, although we don't have much firm stuff, that indeed, as Julia mentioned there, Ukraine would be willing to trade the NATO aspiration for legally binding security guarantees. And equally, we've been hearing about the other red lines. This is a big deal. We see the Americans pushing the Ukrainians to get a deal done by Christmas. No one believes that's going to happen, but certainly they are having to engage and having to show that they are not the reason that these talks are not going to work.
So where are Ukraine's red lines now, Nick? As Julia was explaining, they do seem to have shifted.
Well, on NATO, yes, but I think on the front lines, on walking out of Donetsk region, of the parts of Donetsk region that Ukraine still controls. That is still a red line. We've had all these suggestions from the American side of some kind of vaguely formulated free economic zone in the remaining parts of Donetsk that Ukraine currently controls, that maybe, for instance, the Russian army wouldn't move in, but potentially Russian police or some other kind of force, that some international force would be looking after that area, and US financial interests would be active there. None of that flies from a Ukrainian perspective. They do not believe that, if the Ukrainian army were to leave, which they firstly don't want to do because they've been spending 4 years defending that territory, they are convinced that the Russians will move in one way or another earlier rather than later. So they have rejected that. They've said, we can freeze the front lines where they are right now, but we are not going to give up territory that we have spent years and thousands of lives defending, because eventually that is going to lead to a political crisis back here in Kyiv if Zelensky were to agree to that.
So, Julia Saudelli, despite these talks starting here in Berlin yesterday, the German Chancellor wasn't involved. Will Germany and European leaders, will they step up today to try and shape the outcome of today's talks?
Well, Germany is still the host, and even though German Chancellor Friedrich Merz didn't stay for the entire duration of the talks, we know that he welcomed both delegations into the Chancellery, so his office, and that he started the meeting. And we saw him sitting next to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the other side of the table from the US delegation, which is quite striking. So Merz was there, he introduced the meeting and then left, but we are going to see a big show in political force coming from European countries today, with Zelensky meeting a lot of German political representatives here in Berlin, but also a very long list of European leaders showing up this evening to also show their support for Ukraine. And we've also seen with Merz giving a speech on the weekend about how he has realized that the Pax Americana, basically the US guaranteeing a security status and a security situation of peace across the world, is not the reality anymore. And we see that Europeans seem to be becoming more aware of the fact that they have to push themselves.
This is the day they drove old Europe down.
Path forward in terms of their own security.
Thanks for that, Julia.
We'll see.
Correspondents Julia Saudelli in Berlin and Nick Connolly in Kyiv. Thank you both.
But basically, today Europe's going to have to figure out a way to step up.
Yeah,
because somebody needs to be doing some tough negotiating, and we know Trump can't do tough negotiating.
On HBO Max, Paramount
I'm actually.
Look what happened in Afghanistan.
Must-see movies and TV on YouTube.
We should get a clue to the answer to what you're saying. I'm waiting on the German Chancellor and Zelensky are meeting, and I'm monitoring see where we stand. They're supposed to do a presser here any minute, and that's where it's supposed to be, but they hadn't started yet. But it'll be the toughest talker lately has been this German leader, and they've stepped up on adding a lot to their defense spending. So maybe we'll get a clue in this, how far they're going to go. But you're right. That's the question: is Europe just going to give up on this or step up?
He's fairly safe politically, isn't he?
Well, none of these. I mean, that's the other thing that's going on. I was getting into a little bit earlier. I had a press conference that the EU leader did about migration. Is the political danger that French, German, and other leaders is coming from the pressure that you were talking about, the Trump and Putin alliance with the right-wing parties in these European countries. Mm-hmm. Their issue is immigration, and they are really putting these European leaders on the back foot on immigration. Just like we've seen here.
Yeah.
So they're not solid.
With an election, aren't they?
What's that?
France is coming up with an election here before long.
Yeah, France's politics are in disarray. Yeah. There's a right-wing party in Germany that's on the move, and other countries. So, no, I mean, the answer to your question, I think, is politically, a lot of these leaders are not, maybe not on the Ukraine question, but they're vulnerable on immigration issues, which Putin and Trump are pushing to the forefront.
Well, what I was thinking was this, is basically the EU has two main leaders, and that's France and Germany.
Right.
And then everybody else just kind of wanders around below that. And Macron is, he's politically weak right now. So he can't step up and lead. And that was what I was wondering about Germany. I would really like to see France and Germany showing up as partners. If they could do that, I think they could be fairly powerful.
Yeah, this this press conference that's coming up here, it's already about 30 minutes late starting with the German leader.
Hey, that's politics, isn't it?
Yeah,
they're on what was it, Clinton time?
Yeah. So while we're waiting on that, let's see. Let's see. We got a commenter here. Okay, here. We'll put this on here. This is from our old friend who used to call himself Maggot Man. He'd been on with us a few times. Who cares about Ukraine? And if one does, why? Europe is dying. Okay. Maybe you're right. So what?
Well, the bad part about it is we're dying right along with them.
Yeah.
And China's going to eat all of our lunches.
I just love how Trump has got his zombies convinced that Europe's our enemy and we can live without them. I guess it just doesn't matter. They're our number one trading partner in the whole planet.
I think I don't think anybody's in charge of anything in that administration.
Yeah.
I've been reading some of the comments from different people about the national security thing they put out. And you'll see somebody will sit there and say, well, I found some stuff I like about it or something like that.
Yeah.
And what you realize is it just depends on who wrote that page.
Yeah.
In his administration. And you can turn right around and flip the page and it goes in another direction.
And there are two. In any administration, you try to identify the various spheres of influence, and inside an administration, and there on the international front, there appear to be at least two, maybe two and a half. But anyway, you've got Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is the one really pushing this just boot Europe strategy.
Yeah.
His first trip to Europe after they took office, he raised that, and then Rubio seems to be more traditional European policy, and so there's a struggle between those two.
Well, I think Vance has won that one. I mean, Rubio can't even protect Cubans.
Yeah, I mean, Rubio has to argue about fonts instead. I mean, to get attention.
But I mean, it was just absolutely. I was very surprised to see when they start blocking who could become citizens. They were blocking Cubans, and I'm going, wait a minute. Where's Rubio here?
Yeah.
He can't even protect his own people. And I mean, I think he needs to go back down to Miami and see if he can't get on a corporate board somewhere.
Well, I'm sure he wants to run. I mean, the Vance and Rubio contest, and there'll be others, but I mean, those are the two administration figures anyway that I see running for the Republican nomination next time, and that'll be quite a contest.
Rubio's dead. he may try, but he's got the stink of Trump on him, and he has none of the support. It's
Blue in Dallas got this, picked up on this just now. I don't know what to say about Donald Trump. I swear. I mean, every time I think he's gone as low as he can go.
Oh, the thing about,
look at that, about Rob Reiner.
Yeah,
look at that.
Was that what he actually posted?
Yeah, there's the actual post. I'm not quoting it from an article. I went and got the actual post. That's it.
Oh God. See, that's what I'm saying. Is I don't think anybody's in charge.
Well, when it comes to writing tweets, he's the only one in charge. I mean, there's a lot of other junk on his account that you can tell aides put on. I mean, they even have a lot of ads, but I mean, stuff like this. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife. Now get this, reportedly due. Who's reporting this? Nobody is. Reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. So he's made Rob Reiner getting killed about himself.
See, that goes right back where I say our best. Sometimes Donald Trump is our best spokesperson. The more he gets out there in front, the less people like him. I mean, you've got to be a total MAGA, lost in the weeds to think that's appropriate.
Yeah. Well, and often they don't think it's appropriate, and they just say things like, "Oh, that's just him. That's just Trump being Trump. He's just kidding around. I mean, they write it off. They don't defend it. They blame the media for caring about it. That's how they respond.
And that might be where you basically got to tell someone like that, that's who you are. If you support Donald Trump, you have to carry that burden right there, because that's you.
Meanwhile, rebellious Renee put this up, and I guess this is what Trump means about Rob Reiner's Trump derangement syndrome, but I don't see it as derangement. I see it as very accurate.
Well,
Renee put this up.
They're exactly on the opposite side of the spectrum. But, it's kind of like when Charlie Kirk got killed and they were all worried about people talking bad about him. And, well, here their leaders doing it for somebody else on the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I thought somebody posted that they had arrested their son.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one that's getting a lot of. People magazine went pretty far. They put it in a headline that they put in parentheses, sources say, but they had a headline last night, and it was still up this morning, that killed by his son, which that is not very cautious to put a headline like that up. But
well, you got to get that.
So our buddy here, ARH, he says Reiner ruthlessly excoriated a living Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, I've got it up here, and I agree with what he said. I mean, Trump's a damn racist who at the very least enables racism in this country. If that's excoriating, okay, it's true. And let's see. Okay, he's continued. You guys are pure, would never do anything so ostensibly crass as Trump and the rest of us, so I shall never be welcome among you angels. Well, you're welcome. I'm just not going to agree with you. And here's another one. Trump somewhat humorously criticized a dead Reiner, killed by his own son's hands, reportedly. Somewhat humorously? What? How do you be somewhat humorous about somebody getting stabbed to death? I mean, how do you excuse that? Jeez, these people are nuts.
Well, if you approve of it, buddy, you're one of them. You're just
yeah.
That's all I can say. Because that was way over the top.
Explaining the same thing over and
that
over.
Wasn't humor. That wasn't humor. That was.
Raise your hand if you told your boss how to
that
do
was,
the same thing more than once. Thought so. That's why they're scribed. Go
immoral.
To scribehow.com.
I think is the way to put it.
Capture, do the task once.
Trying to see.
Will create a step-by-step
I think
guide
they're
share
getting ready to do this press conference. Yeah, here it is. Finally, would have been waiting for.
Americans and Europeans.
This is the German leader and Zelensky after their meeting. And earlier today, Zelensky met with Kushner. So I feel like things are coming to a head maybe today on whatever they're going to end up doing.
I just don't know how they do it.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of curious to see.
Hours. There are a few EU
heads
of state and government that I'll be welcoming in the Chancellor's office soon to discuss some of these issues, apart from
Can you hear this translator?
Zelensky and myself, French President and
no, not
British
really.
Prime Minister will be there, but also
these people on these streaming things, they don't crank up their volume enough.
Georgia Meloni, Alexander Stubb, and the NATO head Mark Rutte.
This is German public television.
Witkoff and Kushner will be
there. You also got to
so
understand
this
that
is
I
an
have my
ambitious
TV
program.
with,
Russia is playing for time by asserting its maximum requests at the same time. It is continuing
because I'm
its
hard of
war
hearing.
against Ukraine. But we're not going to let ourselves be put off by this. We're pursuing 5 goals.
And she has
we have agreed on between
the voice
all
that
of us here.
has always been
After 4
extremely
years
hard
of
for
war,
me to hear.
we want
I think
Yeah.
I lost that ring
ceasefire
my hearing back when I was a teenager.
preserves
Well,
the
they are putting
sovereignty of
some
the
quotes
Ukrainian
up
state,
here.
and this
We have real
ceasefire must
opportunity
be
for peace in
supported by
Ukraine.
substantial legal and material guarantees of
I mean,
both the EU
Zelensky met with
and
Kushner
USA.
for like
The
5
legal
hours
and
yesterday.
material guarantees
And
that
then
the US
again
have put
today.
on the table here in Berlin is
So they're
really
trying to,
considerable.
and that's
This
when
is huge progress,
Zelensky
and I
yesterday
welcome
said
it
that
very much. Thirdly,
essentially said
we
they'd
are
give up
working together on a ceasefire
getting in
between
NATO
Ukrainians, Americans,
in exchange
and the
for some kind of
Europeans.
security guarantee
Yesterday and today, this remains
similar to
our
Article 5
agreement,
in NATO.
our common understanding, and our common
Well,
success.
I think
Fourthly, this ceasefire
the only way I
must
can see
ensure that the unity
you
of the EU and
stopping
NATO
Putin from
not be
waiting
infringed
2
on.
years,
It must come
rearming,
together even
and
stronger
attacking
than in the
Ukraine
past.
again
And fifthly,
is
the
to put NATO
ceasefire
troops into
must preserve the
Ukraine
Ukrainian
along the
perspective
border
and
as
make it possible
peacekeepers.
for Ukraine to rebuild.
Yeah, and that is
as do the Americans,
the
as do the Europeans.
condition Putin's always put on their discussions is that he would never agree to a ceasefire that included any NATO troops able to enforce the ceasefire.
And the Ukrainian president,
That's where it's always fallen apart with
who is defending
the
his
West
territory here,
or with
and
Europe.
let me say,
You know, we can't even say the West anymore because now we're not part of the West. Europe's the West and we're part of Russia now. So what are we? What is that?
The Ukrainians who decide on any ceding of territory.
I mean, how do you be the leader of the free world when you want the free world to be enslaved by Russia?
Negotiation position.
I
In very confidential rounds, we have discussed where we
like I
stand.
say, it doesn't make any sense because Russia's nobody anymore.
This evening that we will
They've got nuclear weapons,
progress,
and that's their only real power.
we will close ranks between Ukraine, Europe, and
I mean, this is one of those,
to push
you know,
Moscow to stop playing for time.
we don't stop
and
them
to
now,
work
then
towards
yeah,
a ceasefire as well. So we
they'll
as
cause more
Europeans
trouble
will be stepping
elsewhere.
up the pressure on Russia to this end.
You know what? I'm gonna while I monitor that press conference in hopes that they show us something concrete about what they're saying, I'm gonna ask my new Gemini AI buddy what's happening. What is happening at this Zelensky Germany press conference right now? See how up to date he is. He's assessing. I love watching when it tells you what it's doing. It's assessing event logistics. Right.
Yeah.
That's a feature you can enable or disable where it'll show you what it's doing while it's thinking.
Yeah.
They call it show thinking. You can choose to show it or not.
Is that like the AOL little spinning symbol?
Yeah. Yeah, but in this case, they actually tell you what they're doing if you want them to. Okay, this is Zelensky and German Chancellor Merz. Okay, we know that. All right, the three breaking headlines. I'm having trouble figuring out how to slide up and down this page. NATO bid drop. Zelensky has publicly signaled for the first time. Yeah, I kind of knew that. He is offering to trade membership for binding guarantees. That's what they're calling them, binding guarantees. Now, the thing about getting security guarantees, and you know, this is not lost on Ukrainians. They did that once. They gave up nuclear weapons, their nuclear capability in exchange for our security, our binding guarantees to protect them against Russia. Russia's invaded twice.
That and then again when Russia attacked and took over
Crimea,
then they negotiated another truce and ceasefire.
Yeah.
So there's no indication that Russia can be trusted,
or that NATO can be trusted. I mean, because NATO made that first deal with them to protect them if they gave up the nuclear weapons against any invasion.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess NATO's tried to step up to that agreement, but not to the extent that original agreement meant.
I think Ukraine is kind of at the point where they are basically going to have to kind of do like Israel. That they're going to have to specialize in stuff, you know, warfare.
You mean You mean in terms of what, their military capability?
Yeah, their military capabilities.
Well,
they're going to have they cannot depend on anybody but themselves.
Well, they are. I've seen several reports that Ukraine is actually leading on drone technology. They're very advanced on that.
Well, they're right there where they're experimenting with it every day.
Yeah,
they can come up with an idea and trot it out into the actual field.
Yeah, let's try this out on some troops. Yeah. Now, here's what Gemini is saying is the friction point. The demilitarized zone. The U.S. Trump plan reportedly calls for a demilitarized zone to freeze the conflict. Requires Ukraine to withdraw from parts of Donetsk. All right. And Zelensky's rejected this as a red line, asking why only Ukraine should withdraw while Russian troops stay put. Well, he's got a point.
I think, yeah, basically Russian troops need to pull completely out of all of the former Ukraine.
This is what I like about Gemini. When I've got this Gemini set on this, you have your choices down here. You can get fast answers quickly, or thinking with 3 Pro, thinks through complex topics. So I have it set on this thinking setting. So you get responses like this where it goes in a little deeper and calls it the weird vibe. The review lists shadow. While Merz and Zelensky are presenting a united front, the backdrop is the Danish intelligence report and the U.S. rumors about pushing out certain aid. Now that's a good connection of dots there, because, yeah, that is going on behind the scenes. The Danish intelligence report that's gotten a lot of discussion, where they said that the U.S. might be a security threat to Europe itself. But it also said in that report that we are talking about shrinking NATO. Some of the countries should get out.
Yeah.
And Trump, in his interview with Politico a few days ago, the only country he was asked about that, the only one he named was Turkey. But I'm sure that the thinking here is that Hungary and Turkey in particular, Hungary being a satellite of Putin already, would get out of NATO. And I mean, that's where this is headed.
Well, I think that Hungary's right there bordering on, well, Turkey too, of being non-democratic. And part of NATO is kind of their democratic countries. But I guess we're getting that way too.
Yeah, if we don't change it, I mean, we got a chance to change it. Then I think we do have a chance. But you get on over here to, another thing that, we want Canada out of NATO. It's always, Trump's always complained that Canada shouldn't be in NATO. But anyway, on these spending targets, the other thing that we're doing to undermine NATO is we are proposing, the U.S. is proposing that they up their defense spending from 2% of GDP to 5%, which some of those countries like Greece, for example, can't possibly achieve. But what they're setting up is that a whole bunch of countries wouldn't be able to reach that 5% target, and then that'll be the excuse for the U.S. pulling out of NATO. That's the thinking about that, the connection to that proposal. I mean, they're trying everything they can to disband NATO.
Yeah.
Now,
and that's where the isolationists within his party seem to have a lot of influence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if Miller's part of that.
I've never seen Stephen Miller get on to anything other than immigration, although, he does talk about immigration in Europe. Because we think this Trump's immigration focus is domestic, but it's an international right-wing program to undermine democracies by arguing to the middle class that these messy democracies are letting all these immigrants come in and ruin your country, but put me, the strong man, in charge, and I'll stop it and run everything, and you won't have any rights, but you won't have any immigrants either. So that's their argument, and they're winning it in some places. I guess what it ultimately comes down to, all this, is this going to matter enough to Americans? Is it a voting issue in the midterms?
No.
Us abandoning Europe? Probably
No.
not. Yeah.
I think it seems at times when we sit here and I read things, or I'm reading some of these Substack places that have comments, that when they do foreign policy, they get no comments because nobody cares.
Yeah.
Now, if it's domestic, if it's about Trump, they'll get, several thousand comments. Then if they do an article about some foreign policy issue, they'll get a couple of hundred.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's,
I'll put back on here what this Trump troll said earlier in our comment here. Who cares about Ukraine? And if one does, why? Europe is dying. Okay. I just sometimes wonder, is it just my old fashioned thinking? I grew up, learning about NATO and World War II and the post World War II world order and how it benefited our own economy and national security, and I just don't see what's so wrong with it that we need to tear it all up. But that's why we got a president who's doing that.
Well, we've had that point of view has almost been a minority point of view in both parties, and sometimes. Because that's not something that the labor movement has been in. They have fought tooth and nail about most of our international stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's trade agreements or whether it's immigration or, all that stuff. What you're seeing is basically the labor movement's 100% behind it.
Yeah.
And so that's, the Democrats, and then the MAGA people have always been part of the Republican Party ever since they did their Southern strategy. And they're the same. They agree. And that's basically, I think, what got Trump elected the first time was retired union people and the MAGA people. And of course, the business people thinking they could manipulate him.
Well, now we got Zelensky. Let's see if he'll speak some English.
What compromises?
No, we got that lady we can't hear.
Some here and a real compromise, and we will do everything we can in order to find a very clear response in terms of security guarantees and financing and possible reparations. Who has to pay for what? We'll have to understand what the sources of financing could be. Where will this money come from? And with reference to the frozen Russian assets in Europe, I do think that is a potential source. There are framework agreements that are being envisaged with reference to security guarantees, and in many different ranges, we've already made progress. And I'm grateful for that.
Territory question
Now,
is
with
painful for
reference
us.
to the
Zelensky
frozen
said.
Russian assets.
Well, that gets
there's
back
one
to
thing I'd
the
like to say about
friction
that
point
now.
our Gemini
We've
pal was
already
talking
made
about.
one
Is,
decision, and this decision from last week is that the Russian assets will be frozen long-term in Europe, so they'll be immobilized. That means that the Russian currency bank, Russian central bank, and the Russian state
that's
will have no
another
access
issue
to
is
these assets in the long
the
term.
Russian
Now, the
assets
question
that
of
they've
which
frozen in Europe.
financing we will generate from that.
The pressure had been on them to use that money
financing of Ukraine is something we're
to
going to
aid
continue to
Ukraine,
discuss.
but instead of doing that, they're
And
talking
we'll
about
decide on Thursday. We've got the
they'll just
Article
extend the
122,
freeze,
which allows a decision on this with a qualified majority.
but not actually use it for Ukraine.
It is only on the basis of Article 122
Hey,
of
Jamie.
the treaty that we'll be able to agree on this.
You there, Jamie?
Yes, I
And there are
am.
no other
hello
decisions that we can
Hello.
take except on this article. Then the use of mean
We're,
funding from
we're
the
just
pandemic time,
keeping an eye on the day they drove old Europe
releasing
down.
European bonds are things that require
I bounced in because I
consensus,
saw
and we're
the
not going to get
comment
this
about
consensus within some of the
Rob
EU member
Reiner's
states. So
son.
that means we can only
Oh,
work with a qualified
yeah,
majority
let me go
and
back
take
to
a decision on
that
that.
because that was
In
you know,
terms
I
of
was
the
saying
agreement
that
and the use
Get the whole Zelensky
and that's what we'll be discussing
drive-by
in
shooting
the EU.
the Trumps were doing earlier this morning.
Oh, that's a nice avatar you got there, a little owl and a Christmas outfit.
Yeah, I lost my other avatars. I'm having to redo my whole blog and and I've got a new computer and everything is a god-awful mess on this end.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's never fun.
Hey, Jamie, I was at the store the other day and they had a plush toy, you know, a stuffed toy of a Highland cow.
Of a what cow?
Highland cow. Because of my little coup with the animated tail that Colorado built for me.
Yeah.
I hope I haven't lost it in all of the stuff that's going on here. Because I'm having to change my whole format and bring it up to this century and everything else.
Now, is this what you're talking about? Because
yes, I am.
Yeah, Blue and Dallas put that up earlier. So I went. I'm always suspicious. Sometimes people write fake Trump posts. You know, I thought, and this one I suspected is so wild. But then I went and this is directly from his account on True Social. I went and pulled this right off his account. This is real.
Okay. I shouldn't be surprised anymore. But
I was surprised. I was surprised at this. Actually.
Yeah, but the depth of the vile hatred and the completely diseased mind of this man.
Yeah. Well, we had a comment earlier. Oh, here's another one. Let's see what hypocrites you people are. We're hypocrites, guys. I don't know why.
What is hypocritical about hating someone that's disgusting in his view of the world? You know,
Yeah.
I'm not hypocritical about it. I hate the man.
Well, I love this. I love this defense. I guess this is a defense. Trump somewhat humorously criticized a dead Reiner killed by his own son's hands. This is what I said earlier. This is what I always see when they can't defend this crap of Trump's. They say, "Oh, he's just kidding," or, he didn't mean that. They always turn it into we're being the butt hurts, we're overreacting.
I mean, he did everything he could to help this son of his who was afflicted with drug addiction. And we all know just how bad that is. And for a parent to go through it. And of course, the child is sick, but for Trump to go on and blame the father for the son's addiction.
Yeah. And make it about himself.
It's
because he attacked me that he got stabbed to death. That's what he's basically saying here. I don't know. And where are the parents of the world who have, what do parents think about having a president like this? I mean, the supporters of Trump with children, is this really the role model they want for their kids? I mean, that's the thing I always think should be.
I think back to, sure, there were people on the right that I disagreed with, and some things I agreed with, but we could carry on a civilized conversation. There is no possible civilized conversation with Trump. And I think about my own children and raising them, and they're both now in their 60s. But when my daughter was 2, she accidentally broke a very prized candy dish. And she didn't realize really what she had done until I sat down with the pieces in my hands and I was crying because it was something of an heirloom. And here's my baby girl patting me on the back and comforting me and saying, "Don't cry, Mommy, please don't cry. I'm sorry, I broke it." And I just cuddled her and I said, "These things happen, honey. It was important, but I love you." And she is still that person 60 years later, caring and comforting for others. You have to teach children empathy. It's their natural state, but if you encourage it, it stays with them for life.
Well, and you learn, Mary Trump, Trump's niece, and I've seen others talk about it. That was not taught in the Trump household, empathy. His father did not teach empathy, and his mother apparently didn't teach anything. She was just absent. Let's see. We got more. Let's see. The hate has been yours for years. Get a grip on reality. Okay. And then what the fuck are you people on about? Okay. And boy, this one's on a roll. Guy. Kamala called Trump a fascist. Well, yeah, that's true. Hitler has been your repeated name calling, but suddenly you are pure. Give the hypocrisy a break. Okay. And same guy.
He still can't defend what Trump said, can he?
No, never has.
Come on, man. Come on, defend your man. Get up there.
And
defend him.
Fact. Reiner was mildly obsessed with Trump, obviously didn't raise his boy right. Okay. As Trump implied, his obsession was unhealthy and apparently helped him get killed.
And how do you make that connection?
He says, "Of course I can," and answered your question defending him.
All I can say is quit smoking. Whatever it is, you're smoking.
Well, since he's on a roll,
it ruins brain cells.
Trying to get.
No, I've had friends for 40 years that are so far right they're about to fall off of the edge of a flat Earth, and we can carry on a civilized conversation. I can say that they've raised great children, and whatever their political beliefs, those are there. And we can disagree, but we don't do crap like Trump does.
Yeah. Oh, he's still at it. So he's trying to defend it now. It's a tweet. Trump has every right to criticize Reiner. Reiner didn't show much about civility towards Trump, yet now Trump is supposed to show it to you leftists. He doesn't have to show me anything. I'm just saying. Turning this guy's death into this.
Trump is the president of the United States, and as president, he represents all of us. And when he speaks for all of us, and he should temper his thoughts. Everybody else does it when they're in that job. There's no excuse for Trump. This isn't your little redneck bar that you go get drunk at.
And you know what gets me about this is this tweet of his is it's going to get everybody a talking. And he's over there. He's got his son-in-law in Berlin right now, giving away Ukraine to Putin. and that's what they don't want us talking about.
That's it.
Well, ARH in New York City, I would say the things I'm saying about anybody who acted the way that Trump acts. It's not specific. It's just more important because he is president and has that power.
Yeah. Well, talking about New York City, was it on our blog or somewhere else that I was reading that they recently set a record for days without a homicide?
Yes.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Of course, they may have exported all their problems to New Jersey, but
yeah.
Well, that's a little what I was thinking about, with Washington, D.C. and their crime. But right next door is
Baltimore.
And they're a high crime city.
Right.
Well, we got something going on in D.C. right now that I don't know how it's going to play out, but our police commissioner resigned.
Yeah.
Rather surprised abruptly, and the Justice Department is saying no. This is the House Oversight Committee. The Republican House Oversight Committee is saying that she was making up crime stats to make crime look better, and that has been an argument ever since Trump started this whole thing about that we're riddled with crime in DC. But my issue there, and I have to get into it further, but my issue there is that the crime stats were coming from the FBI. I'm not aware that the police commissioner stats were the ones that anybody was really talking about. So I don't know, but what I see them doing is they're ginning up the argument that these cities make up these when the crime stats don't fit their narrative, then they're ginning up the argument that the crime stats are getting rigged, by these cities to make it look better. So anyway, I thought about that. That'll be their argument to the one you just cited about New York.
Some of those are real easy to track. You can track the murders. Anybody can, you can turn your AI loose and he can track the murders.
Yeah.
Because they get reported broadly. But it is the problem with the FBI crime stats that I've found when I've used them in arguments and stuff is there are jurisdictions that do not report, or they don't report everything.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have a real problem of doing an apples to apples comparison on things.
Yeah.
because different jurisdictions report crime in different ways. And it's not mandatory that they have to report. So I would say you go out here in a lot of rural counties and they probably never report anything.
Yeah.
Okay, our buddy in New York City wants us to say something flattering about Trump, and I'm trying to think of something I could say. I mean, we know he has absolutely horrendous taste in decoration. I will give him this, that I have disliked the man since when he was on the head of The Apprentice, because that was so phony.
I never watched that show. I had no idea.
I watched it a couple of times,
what
and
impact it had.
Yeah, and Burnett actually wrote a whole long article about how phony it was and why he used Trump, because Trump was not a real billionaire. And yet that was the whole basis of being a businessman that got him elected.
Well, and Trump wasn't his first, Burnett also wrote, Trump wasn't his first choice. He wanted I think he wanted Bill Gates. I mean, there were some others.
Well, he wanted a real billionaire and he couldn't find one.
He couldn't find one that wanted to do it, right?
Except the cities weren't murderous when he sent them in. You have to do something to at least back that up with facts,
Yeah.
The crime statistics were going down in cities where he said everything was in flames.
Well, the only place he sent in the National Guard that had crime problems was Memphis.
Well, and they ended up not really doing that. I mean, that didn't. First of all, it was only going to be about 150. Then it was down to 50, and I don't know if any. I mean, and the problem they got with the whole National Guard thing is they're losing all the legal cases. I mean, and I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do, but that's where it's headed. So that's where it may get settled. But I mean, 5 out of 5 judges who have held actual evidentiary hearings and ruled on the merits, which none of the appellate courts have yet. None of them have ruled on the merits. They paused the lower court decisions, but for more discussion. But anyway, 5 of the 5 judges that held evidentiary hearings ruled that it's illegal what Trump's doing with National Guard.
Yeah,
5 out of 5, and all across the country.
Of course, by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, they'll approve anything Trump does.
Maybe. I think the Chicago case is already at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but even the Supremes are starting to give him a little resistance because he's just gone too far.
Yeah.
Well, there's the 3 that'll do anything that the Republican Party wants done.
Mm-hmm.
They are so blatantly.
You could say that about when it was a Democratic majority, that they sometimes did what the Democratic Party wanted done.
Well, I think we've kind of got that way a little bit.
Yeah.
That worries me, is that we have set up to where I think maybe Kagan and Sotomayor kind of are kind of knee-jerk Democrats in there.
Well, that's the problem. You could, for a long while, you could be a moderate right to moderate left, and there was some middle ground that you could work with and issues you could work on. But the maggots have driven everybody so far apart that there doesn't seem to be any middle ground anymore. And I feel bad about that.
And we can't blame just them.
Mm-hmm.
There,
oh yeah, there's been resistance both ways.
You know, there have been in some ways, like we're talking about Rob Reiner. In some ways, he is also added to that problem.
Yes,
he and the Hollywood liberals that Reagan used to talk about so much. But they were real and highly influenced. What was it? I was reading an article the other day about money in politics, and they said the money that is spent on commercials is almost all wasted. That's not where that's not where money does the influence. Money does influence in who actually decides to run.
Yeah, I can see that point, but there are some examples. You know, I would say the $40 million they spent on that transgender ad on college football TV in the election, I think it had an impact. I think, you know, if you have a precise message that you target to a precise audience, if you can figure out where that audience is, which is hard.
Yeah.
You know, and they did it with that. You know, Miriam Adelson paid for it, and you know, the wife of the Vegas casino guy. I mean, she wrote a check for $40 million for just that one ad that they aired on the weekends, 2 weekends before the election on college football TV coverage. And it was a brutal ad. I mean, it was effective. I mean, I remember the way it ended. It talked about how, you know, Kamala, they made fun of the pronoun thing, that Kamala's for they and them, you know, that pronoun thing with the transgender.
Right.
And Kamala's for they and them. Donald Trump is for you. That's how they ended it.
Well, I thought the whole thing about the, you know, putting up your pronouns was just silly.
Well, there's been a lot of silliness out there on the left. You know, that's like the Latino with the X on the end instead of an O.
Oh, yeah. Latinx to include everybody from Spain to Argentina.
Well, the thing is that it's trying to enforce their point of view onto a whole culture.
Right.
And the whole culture doesn't like it. I mean, you know.
Yeah, speaking of which, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say NYC isn't really listening to what we're saying right now.
Oh.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. Here we are saying really not nice things about the far left, and he's not listening.
Yeah, this is kind of fun. Just while we have a conversation, somebody just attacks us here in the text. It's fine. I mean, that's America. They don't. I guarantee you, they don't put this on Fox.
Yeah, but see, we're pure of mind and heart. No, we're not pure.
But anyway, I brought up here. Did you see where, I guess it's for real, Axios went kind of deep on it. It looks like Kamala really is planning to run.
Is she?
Yeah, Axios had a story that she's laying all the groundwork, and then the other thing that's going on in Democratic circles is the circling around trying to, a lot of the Newsom's potential rivals are recognizing that if you had a front runner right now, which would be kind of silly to name one, but if you did, it's him, and they are all going after him on the argument that liberal California is the last thing that's going to win in an election, and could be. But anyway, those are the two things I see going on. Democrats are lining up against Newsom, and it could be in concert. Harris is starting to make noises about running.
And of course, you know, then there's the Illinois guy. Can a fat bellied billionaire win?
Now, are you talking about Pritzker?
Yeah. He almost looks like the guy, body wise, that's in the Monopoly set.
Yeah. And I was thinking, Jamie, you and I have had such success with, I mean, you more than me, I think, with Monjaro. I mean, I'm down 35 pounds on Monjaro. Kate Pritzker, with all his money, get on Monjaro and lose some of that weight.
Now I have started something, haven't I?
Yeah.
Body shaming. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's unavoidable. I mean, I think, well, you know, what's his name from New Jersey? I think that was always a limitation.
I don't think we could elect Taft again.
You know, it's not true. When I did a book with Helen Thomas about presidents, I researched a bunch of different things, and it's not true that Taft broke his tub. Did you ever hear that story?
Oh, sure. That's one of those White House legends.
Yeah, that he broke his tub. He was so fat. And what happened, I got curious. I got to the bottom of that story. And what happened is they were replacing the tub in the White House. And when the workers were carrying it out, they cracked it in the process of carrying it out. And as they left the White House and the press was there, they saw them carrying the cracked tub. And then that got turned into that Taft is the one who cracked his own tub.
Oh, New York.
Well, didn't they also have the deal that he got stuck in the bathtub or something like that?
Yeah, there was that too.
NYC seems to be a Vance fan.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've seen that earlier. Yeah. Vance. A lot of the maggots who are realizing
he hates us calling them maggots, so keep it to 4 letters. Don't add any.
Well, he called himself a maggot at one point.
I think he picked up on me calling him a maggot.
Okay.
My bad.
Well, I don't care. That's what I call them. Anyway, but anyway, a lot of the Trump supporters that are, starting to move on are trying to switch to Vance. There's a whole lot of money behind it. Peter Thiel has put a fortune into an advertising campaign for Vance on TikTok and other places. I mean, Peter Thiel's already spent millions to promote Vance on TikTok.
I heard a quote recently about, they've got a real problem when a Hitler-loving homosexual Jew is their biggest backer. About Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you argue with your patrons when all the money is all 3 of them?
Yeah, he's one of those oppressed minorities from South Africa, isn't he?
Well, Vance, the one that I'm watching, I mean, the question is who gets MAGA, who inherits the MAGA mantle. And I think Vance does get a chunk of it perhaps, but I'm not sure he has the charisma
Well, he
the
was
the entertainment value.
Yeah, he was the liberal darling to begin with his book. And yet they found so many discrepancies between reality and his stated view of what things happened that he's picking up a bit of the dishonesty mantle as well.
The one that I keep an eye on for potential MAGA leadership inheriting it is Hawley, Josh Hawley. I think he's got a real shot at it.
Yeah, he is most definitely positioning himself in that world. I mean,
he's never said a cross word about Trump that I know of.
Yeah,
and both Vance and Rubio have.
But a lot of it's like I said, a lot of his stuff comes across almost liberal.
Yes,
but he does not run. He does not do liberal.
Yeah,
but he does very definitely approaches the basic grassroots MAGA concerns, which supposedly liberals, if they would get their nose out of the air.
And his educational style is good. I mean, when you have a Trump with his 4th grade vocabulary and you compare it to Hawley or Vance, at least there's some intelligence at work there.
Well, he's pretty good. He's pretty good as a politician. He's very much surprised me.
Okay, New York is asking us a direct question, and I will answer him with this: if they have actually committed crimes.
The question is seeking out, arresting, and deporting illegal aliens who've committed crimes here in the U.S. something wrong? Yeah. Obama did a very good job of that, actually. What were you going to say, Jamie?
Well, much the same thing. If that's who they are seeking out, arresting, and deporting, fine, go for it. No problem.
They've been doing that for 40 years.
I mean, I will agree that it was a mistake for Biden to pull back from the work Obama did on this front. Obama was very tough on deportation. I mean, the immigrant community's advocates called Obama a deporter in chief. And it was a reaction to that Biden dialed back on border control deportations.
He's going
that
again.
Was a mistake.
New York City, because that isn't what he has done. They have gone to the low-lying fruit, the least offensive, the safest ones to arrest. They have not gone after the criminals.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in the numbers. I mean, half the people they arrest end up getting released because they didn't commit crimes. That ICE detains. Half of them are getting released because they committed no crimes.
It gets right back down to what we were talking about the other day with your lawyer friends, that what ICE is doing is not following the law. And I mean, it's just that simple.
I mean, we've got over 60.
That's what's 60. Wrong. If you can support breaking the law, then when they lock your ass up, don't come hollering at me. And buddy, they will. You're too loudmouthed not to get.
And when they go to the courthouses and grab people coming away from their citizenship petitions that are in the works and being done legally, and they're deporting them, most of them end up getting released because there was no reason to arrest them. They were obeying the law and trying to advocate their cases legally.
Well, politically, there was in the beginning, this crackdown on immigration was politically working well for them, but just as they did in the first Trump presidency, they've gone so far, it's starting to turn against them politically. Stephen Miller cost the Republicans Trump's first midterm with kids in cages. I mean, that midterm, Democrats netted 40 seats, largely because people reacted to the immigration outrages. And I'm starting to see that happening again now. Stephen Miller's going to cost him another midterm. I mean, as people start hearing these stories we're talking about.
And he wants to know how it is in violation of the state and federal laws. It is because these people are going through the steps of being what they are. They are undocumented. They are appealing for various causes for the right to be here. They are going through the court system and doing it correctly. And they are getting grabbed and deported anyway. And that's where the Trump side of things are being illegal.
Jamie,
yes.
The ones that they are meeting at the courthouse steps are documented here.
Yes, that's what I mean. But
they're not undocumented. They're documented immigrants. They have been legally admitted, and they're doing this to them. So you can't say, well, we're going after the lawbreakers.
That's what I mean by they are going through the whole process to stay here legally. And
but, you know, the MAGA people don't care about the truth. They're going to sit there and they're going to tell us about the Haitians eating roadkill. Although I know why J.D. Vance was irritated about them eating roadkill, because that is only for hillbillies. Just telling you, they were getting his roadkill, and he was irritated about it.
Well, you know, that story is so funny. If you drill into it, the eating our cats and dogs it started with that woman in that town in Ohio that became the focus of all this, and her cat was missing, and so somehow in the local story, it came out. She got into a local story because she was going around the neighborhood asking people to help her find her cat, and that all dovetailed into this whole discussion about all the Haitians in that town. And it got to J.D. Vance that this woman's cat had been eaten. I wish I was making this up, but this is what happened. And so that's what he started talking about, and it got to Trump, and the debate was coming up, and Laura Loomer was on the plane with Trump going to the debate with Kamala Harris, and she had heard about this story, and she got Trump all fired up about the Haitians are eating cats and dogs in this town in Ohio. Okay, that's how that got where it got, and he ended up saying it in the debate. Now then, what happens afterwards is it turns out later, and the woman ended up apologizing and having some Haitians over to make dinner for him, and she felt horrible about having caused all this. It turned out her cat was in the basement the whole time.
Well, I think also part of the deal was somebody had a picture of of a black guy anyway, that said he was Haitian, carrying a dead goose.
Yeah, down the street.
That was where I said it was roadkill. Well, you know, that's a time-honored tradition. And
it was literally
J.D. Vance's world.
It had literally been run over in traffic and was on the side of the road and dead when the guy picked it up. Yeah, and somebody took a picture, and then they turned that into they are chasing down goose and killing them.
And that
So now
basically
we're on about all of the rapes committed by illegals.
Yeah.
What all rapes?
Oh, our friend in New York City,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Ask him. What? Prove it.
which ones were?
Shut up and prove it. see, he basically, and this is the bad thing about it is this man brought in a woman from overseas that he married, this young lady who, used him as a way to get into the United States. And now he's sitting there playing the MAGA card. Hey, get out of here. Go play with your playmate somewhere. He probably already dumped him. We had a guy, let me tell you a story where I'm coming from. I lived in that immigrant community up there in Kansas City for about 30 years. And I got acquainted with some of the Cambodian folks that had a restaurant, and they became good friends. But anyway, they hired this gal from the Philippines, and she had come over to marry somebody that lived in the neighborhoods, this white guy. And sure enough, she was working there, and they got married, and we threw them a nice little wedding thing, celebration. And I swear 6 weeks later, she was getting a divorce. She got her green card, and that was it. She's gone. And I saw it happen a couple of times.
Well, I remember that was another thing about Obama. They really cracked down on those, those kind of.
They completely changed the way you had to get if you were an illegal. If you were over here undocumented and you married somebody, you had to go back to your country of origin and apply to come in. And it took about 18 months to get that done. Because the church we worked with, their boy married a woman who was undocumented. And they had 2 kids. And the whole family basically moved back down to Mexico so she could come back legally. Even since she was married with kids, she had the right to come. Now,
was that during the Obama years?
Yes, that was during the Obama years.
Because I knew the Obama administration really cracked down on that, but I didn't know exactly how they did it. But.
Yeah, I worked with a guy back in the 90s, our early part of the 20th, when Clinton and then Bush, probably when Bush was, and he came up here when he was 14 and worked construction, and he was a good worker, and he had married an American citizen, and it was no big thing for him to get. He just went down there. He had kids. He had a wife and kids and stuff, and he just went and applied for it, and they gave it to him. And he's now a citizen.
Now the Supreme Court is going to be working on that whole issue of anchor babies. And yet Trump's hotels were maggots for vacationing Russian women having infants in the United States.
Well, that is such a
what's the difference
issue.
between now? What are anchor babies versus dreamers? Is that the same thing?
Dreamers came in with their families without members of their families might be legal, but the children that they brought in with them were not. And they became dreamers. They went through the school systems and everything else, and large percentages of their families do have legal documentation, but these ones brought in as children, infants and children, were not part of that. Now, an anchor baby is when someone who is here legally, such as having a visa, traveling, for whatever reason, they have a right to be here, but they're not citizens. But any child they have by virtue of being born here is automatically a citizen. And the baby then becomes an anchor for the parents to be legalized. And that's part of the case that the Supremes are going to be hearing is, does just being born here automatically qualify you as a citizen, which has always been the case. You know, if you actually were born here.
Yeah, because it's in the Constitution, but then it says subject to the laws thereof or something like that. They've seized on a
there's
phrase.
5 words in there that they're going to be arguing over.
Yeah.
Well, I think the subject to the laws thereof, and it's kind of what I made the point the other day, is that you start setting categories of these people are subject to the laws and these people aren't. If the people here who are here undocumented are not viewed as subject to the laws, that opens up a big can of worms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. So you can just almost go after anybody.
I mean, look up what the Supreme Court case is about.
I think what we have been able to do, and I think we're getting threatened, is we have had a process where immigrants can come in and assimilate. There weren't separate categories, there weren't separate, everybody was under one law. You go like Germany, you know, there's people that are not German citizens who have been, whose great grandfather immigrated to Germany. And they can't get German citizenship. Or that's what I understand anyway.
All right, now we're going. I'm going to head back to Berlin for a minute because let's see what we got here. We got a little bit of information on the latest from this. What they're doing today is, I asked Jim and I what the very latest is. Zelensky was, all right, U.S. officials leaked to reporters 90% of the peace deal is agreed. And this is Jim and I talking. They are trying to box Zelensky in while he is live on the air. But anyway, the biggest new development in the last hour is a major sweetener being
open to joining the EU. Okay, that's a
Russia
big
is yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is I'm trying to see. It's being floated by U.S. envoys Kushner and Witkoff. I just want to see where that was coming from. Russia is reportedly open to Ukraine joining the European Union. Oh, that's not NATO, of course. That's the European
it's not,
Union.
but it's NATO-like.
Why it matters. This is a consolation prize for banning them from NATO. See, now that's the question is it worth that for Zelensky to agree to banning? I mean, banning is different from just not joining now. I mean, what Putin wants is for them to change their constitution in Ukraine to say that they will not ever become a member of NATO. And that's the part that I hope Zelensky doesn't agree to.
Yeah, because if Russia wants the Donbass to become a militarized zone that they can be active in, then Ukraine damn well better have access to defending themselves. because Russia cannot be trusted.
And then the next thing that's new is the bad cop move. It's just been confirmed that Donald Trump will be dialing into the private dinner happening tonight in Berlin about 2 to 3 hours from now. The U.S. team spent the day praising the progress. Trump is calling in tonight to demand the final concession. The demilitarized zone is the sticking point. Ukraine.
Well, I think you should turn the whole Donbass that is currently Russian occupied into demilitarized zone. Russia pulls all their troops back across the border.
Yeah, that's what Zelensky's saying is if we have to pull ours back, why don't they? You know,
well, they shouldn't. They shouldn't have to pull theirs back at all.
Yeah, because Russia's troops do not hold the Donbass.
Mm.
They're part of the way in. They're not all the way in. So if everybody needs to pull back and have that zone.
Well, this was a pretty good. I asked Jim and I here to just tell me the very latest within the past hour, and to put it in bullet form. It did a pretty good job here.
Yeah, what is that? The no NATO thing is a real sticking point. I know it's in their constitution that.
Right. I mean, I think, Zelensky indicated yesterday they'd be willing to say, okay, we won't pursue NATO for right now, but a complete ban on it for forever is something I can't imagine him agreeing to.
Unless nothing's ever forever anyway.
No, but okay, NATO is dead. Oh, sure it is. No, no, NATO is not dead. The U.S. is just being an ass at the moment.
Oh, are you reading this?
Yeah, I'm reading, the party line over here from New York City.
The party line.
No.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, why have all these people bought Trump's argument that NATO is so bad? I just don't get it. I mean, there's just no understanding
because that is the these people like this idiot here view politics like a football game, and so it doesn't matter how bad your quarterback is, you still cheer for your football team, and and since what is it? Oh, the Yankees are playing in the Red Sox. And nobody in Boston is going to say any good thing about the Yankees, and nobody in New York City is going to say any good thing about Boston, the Red Sox.
I hate them both.
And
my
Dodgers
are going to take it all
down to. They're not trying to think about policy. They're not trying to think about what's best for us or anything. It's just this is my team, and I'm going to cheer them come hell or high water.
I mean, like this right here. What do European countries offer American citizens? You know what they offer us? They're our biggest trading partner on the planet, the European nations. I mean, it's like our economy is entwined with theirs more than any other region of the world. Oh, well.
Well, that's ignorance.
Okay, sorry about the idiot, but please try and back your comments up with facts. Don't just spout what you've heard.
Meanwhile, did y'all this right here the Danish intelligence report. Did y'all? I mean, this is something that didn't get a whole lot of attention, but they basically say in this intelligence report, a couple of things that caught my attention is that that they warn that the United States is becoming a security threat, that we are a security threat. Of course, they're particularly worked up because of the whole Greenland thing.
Okay, he's coming back with Canada and Mexico being our biggest trading partners. No, they are not.
No, they aren't. I mean,
yes, we have a lot of trade with both of them, but they are not our biggest.
I mean, you put the Europe, you put all of Europe together, and it's one of the biggest economies. I forget it might be second only to us, and maybe China, and as an economy overall. But I mean, it's just ridiculous to say we don't need Europe for anything. I mean, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
But
well, without Europe, we have to face China all by ourselves. And China has basically encircled us and are taking all of our resources. They own 90% of the rare earths that we need to modernize our world.
Okay, here are the ranks by country and region. European Union, Asia, Mexico, Canada, China, Germany, Japan, South Korea, in that order.
Oh, you're talking about trading?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Europe is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Basically, you take Europe, it's like having the East Coast corridor over the whole world, whole part of Europe, except Norway, of course. And nobody wants to live in Norway. I was surprised how small Norway was the other day when BID was doing some things about how Norway was doing this and Norway was doing that. And so I looked up, and they have half the people that New York City has.
Huh.
The whole country.
Right.
That's wild. Well, let's see here. Well, I mean, since we're getting into a back and forth on this, I'll ask what Jamie was asked hers. Oh, here's Blue. Hey, Blue.
Hey, how are you?
Okay. Y'all talk. I'm going to go ask Gemini something here.
Okay. I was just going to say that NATO, they keep saying, oh, NATO, we don't want to get dragged into any wars. Well, the only time that NATO's been invoked is when Canada came to help us. And Trump seems to be getting us into all kinds of wars all on his own without NATO's help. So there's no America first anywhere. So if it's the America first crowd that doesn't like NATO, which I think that's what a lot of it is, Trump is doing a bang up job of getting us into conflicts over resources. And it's more than oil. I found out Venezuela's got some kind of a rare earth mineral that we want even more than the oil. So yeah, so that basically the billionaires are gonna try to split up the earth and just extract all the resources, all the oil, all the minerals, and pollute everything and destroy everything. And the only minority hurting anyone is the billionaires. And that's my 2 cents.
Well, those autonomous countries make up a region, and that is who we trade with.
Now, are you talking to the commenter again?
I'm talking to New York City again.
Oh, okay.
goodness.
I was going to say, I thought you were talking to Blue.
Oh, no, for Blue, she knows what she's talking about, the triumvirate that they're trying to create with China rules the East and Russia gets Europe and we get dominion over the Americas.
That's why Russia got involved in trying to destroy Brexit, is because they want them separate. They don't want them together, you know. And Nigel Farage is a piece of work, to say it nicely. He's right up there with Trump.
Yeah, and the UK is really trying to get back in to the European Union after Brexit. They now realize what a big mistake that was.
But there's a lot of pushback from like Nigel Farage and there's a bunch of billionaires that are trying to just create unholy chaos in the UK right now. If you go in to read any of their papers.
Yeah, that Brexit thing, you know, it was a weird place to get a lot of the detail, but the Mueller report, of all things, had a lot of information about how Russia's involvement in Brexit, and because it tied to some of the Trump people like Steve Bannon, and some of the people that were leaders of the Brexit movement in the UK were allies of both Putin and Steve Bannon, and there was a connection there between Putin and some of the Trump folks on getting Brexit, which was really weird. I mean, the Mueller report had a lot of detail on that.
Is Russia and Trump have a lot in common. And the simple fact is they're able to cause disruption, but they can't seem to create anything.
Well,
they can stir stuff up. They're like a 3-year-old. They can stir stuff up, but they can't really make anything.
Well, somebody wrote somewhere that Trump had been a Russian asset since the 1980s, that he was compromised at that point. So, and I don't doubt it.
I don't think he has to be an asset. After all, Trump goes where the money is right now.
That's it. But
Russia oligarchs were loaning Trump a lot of money.
Yeah. But that's the thing. He's compromised, therefore he is an asset. He's compromised because he took money. He may be compromised.
Nobody seems to care.
He may be compromised for other reasons. There could be other things involved, which I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, and Russians have a great phrase for it. They call it useful idiots.
Yeah.
That's a technical term in Russian intelligence.
I mean, this has been known. This goes all the way back to 2016. So everybody knows it. Everybody voted for him. They don't care. Yeah. And that's what we've got to start understanding. You can't go refight the war from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, it all goes back to that follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know.
Yeah. And right now, like I said, it's going on in the Middle East. That's where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned they can buy Trump, and they're buying him.
But if it all goes south, if it all goes south, are they going to allow Jared and the family to flee to there? Because at the point they're no longer useful. You know.
Now there's a point.
Saudis are not very nice. You know, MBS and those guys. They're not humanitarians. We'll say, but yeah. I don't know. And speaking, I was going to say the Senate race, James Tallarico said something really interesting. He said he's a millennial and he's talked to millennials and Gen Z, and they said that they weren't interested in politics. And he said, but your landlord isn't interested in politics and your boss is, so you'd better get interested in politics. And so he's really trying to pull in the younger people who aren't bothering to vote because they feel like it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I know you're not living in Texas now, but you did for so long. Give us the word on that primary, Tallarico versus.
Well,
what's
you
her
know,
name?
it's like Jasmine Crockett. Now, see, Jasmine Crockett, I like her. I like that she speaks up, but Tallarico, I think, has the winning message because he is work. You need to work both sides of the aisle, but you need to have some common decency. And I don't know, he's not so not argumentative because he does argue. He's not, I don't know. He's gonna, well, and I mean, there's also going to be a lot of people that are going to not vote for her simply because, you know, unfortunately. I think she would make a good senator. I think I think he's got even bigger things to go to than senator. To me, seems like he's, you know, he was an elementary school teacher. He he flipped a Republican district and he's served there for 4 terms now. He seems to have the winning message that it's not brown versus white, or you know what I mean. It's not that. It's up versus down. It's not left versus right. It's up versus down. And so he's got everybody looking at the billionaire class as that's what's causing our problems, and so in every way possible. So,
well, when you look at just the political math of the situation, so long as there were 3 of them running for the Democrat nomination, and 3 of them fairly strong, you're probably going to have a runoff,
right?
And on the Republican side, it looks like they definitely will have a runoff, I think.
But I was going to say, but Ken Paxton, I mean, I don't know how he's so darned unlikable. I don't understand.
But strong enough and with Trump's support that I think they could end up with a runoff, don't you think?
Yeah, probably so.
Anyway, where I'm going with that is it's an advantage to Democrats if the Republicans have a messy, expensive runoff, and the Democrats have already chosen their nominee and can move directly into the general election campaigning. You know, the situation now is better than it was before when it looked like Democrats were also going to have a runoff. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think I was reading on the Texas thing of the Democrat, and the person was making a point. One, the woman,
Crockett?
Yeah. She has really high negatives in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and she's well known, so it's going to be very hard for her to change that.
Well, the only problem I have with Jasmine Crockett, and I love that she speaks back to Trump and that she speaks back to the people that are in hearings and things like that. I love that about her, that she is using her voice in a way that most Democrats seem to be too timid to do, and they should take a page out of her book. But she can't just campaign on Trump hates me. You know what I mean? Because because that's not enough. She's got to go to the same message that Tallarico, I was going to say Tallarico is saying, which is that it's the top versus the bottom. So, I mean, it's the billionaires that are the problem, and
So he's running a populist campaign.
Very much so. Very much so.
And he's playing Texas real well. I understand he's not well known across a lot of Texas. His name recognition isn't that good.
He's had lines at every place he's gone to speak. There's been lines out the door, and he's gone on Joe Rogan.
I noticed he went on Rogan.
Everybody. Yeah, he's talking to everybody. So anyway.
So maybe he can reach out there and do it. It would be, in some ways, I hate to see a really good person try to take on a statewide race in Texas for the Democrats because it's really going to be hard to win.
Okay, our buddy in New York is asking a couple of direct questions. Yeah, he says Saudis are some of the nicest people in the world. Yes, general
But not
population.
MBS.
Oh,
not at the top.
Jamie.
Not MBS.
Yeah,
Not the,
and-
yeah, not
Yeah,
the
it's
people.
not, there is no such thing as the Saudis and the Saudi government. There's that one family that rules everything is a dictatorship. And that's the same thing with every one of those little oil countries around the Persian Gulf. So, don't play that game.
Yeah.
Somewhere else.
No, you talk about the general population from just about everywhere. Yes, they're very nice people, thank you. That is not the same as the ruling class.
Yeah, it's the ruling class that's going to say, yes, Jared Kushner and family, you can come and hide out here, or no, you cannot, and we don't care about you anymore because you can't do anything for us anymore.
The minute those folks are of no use for them, they'll abandon them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, there is no back and forth.
I just love that. This is another thing that Trump's got people convinced that Saudi Arabia is such a wonder. He says Saudi Arabia is a very nice place to live. I mean, it's at the top of the list of repression of political dissent. I mean, they got so many people in jail or tortured or killed for political dissent in Saudi, and it would embarrass Russia. I mean, the idea that it's a nice place to live if you don't criticize the government,
or if you are the government.
Well, to be the government, you've got to be a family member.
Yep, kind of like the Trumps.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. Well, my voice is giving out.
Blue was talking about our economy being from high to low. Back in the 60s, when everybody felt at their wealthiest, the economy was a diamond shape. There was a tiny percentage at the top, a tiny percentage almost equal to it at the lowest end, and everybody else was across the broad middle. And CEOs earned 40 times their lowest employees' rate of pay. Now it's 400 or greater. So, yeah, the billionaire class, we've now got an inverted triangle with all of the money at the top and damn little down below.
Well, the problem, a lot of them earn their $1 billion, and that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
It's the fact that, let's say, Musk is a great example, is playing, so many of them are out there playing in games where they don't know what they're doing and they're causing damage. Just because you know how to run this company doesn't mean you know how to go out and do anything else. And they're getting involved into politics, and left and right in some ways. We're just noticing it, a lot of it, because of Trump's buddies doing the tech thing.
You remember, Jamie, when we were on with my Tulane business professor friend Peter, and he pointed out that the income inequality today in America is actually slightly worse than it was just before the French Revolution in France. That stuck with me. I thought that was an interesting comparison.
Or 1929 before the crash, when the Gilded Age came to a big screaming dump on everybody.
Now, have you guys watched? I can't find anybody other than me and David, who are watching the Ken Burns American Revolution series. Have you guys
I
seen
watched
any
it.
of it?
It was wonderful.
Oh, well, see, what we're doing is we watch a half hour after dinner every night, or most every night. So we're a little more than halfway through. So we're moving through it. I mean, it's what, 6 2-hour episodes? So we're moving through it slowly. But I like doing it that way because it raises questions in my mind that then later on I go and do some research and reading. But I mean, the thing that really sticks with me about it, bringing up France, is I always knew France was pivotal in winning the Revolutionary War. But even more so than, I mean, one stat they had on what we watched last night was in today's dollars, the colonials got from France the equivalent of $25 billion. That's money. I mean, I always knew France, contributed their ships and their navy, which was pivotal. In fact, it might have been more than just pivotal at winning, but I didn't realize how much money they also put in. And in fact, it's the weird and ironic thing is, if you take they bankrupted themselves helping us, and it's one thing that led to the fall of their own monarchy later on.
I did not know that.
What the hell? They spent so much money on us, they screwed up their own economy and lost their monarchy.
And of course, that was what was behind the whole slogan at the beginning of World War I, Lafayette, we are here. We went with the support of France because France had allowed us to become the United States.
Well, the other thing I learned in that is how many mistakes George Washington made militarily. I mean, I gave him, he deserved great credit for one thing. He kept his troops. He was a great leader of his troops, and he kept them fighting against the odds when a lot of leaders might not have been able to keep their troops in line. They were losing so many battles. And he did. But, even though he made a lot of mistakes that led to losing battles, he was good at keeping the troops fired up anyway.
Well, he never surrendered.
Yeah.
If they had got him
he
surrounded
retreated.
where he had to surrender, we would be, we would be more like Canada. We would be talking about the king and his cancer more.
But he was good at he was great at retreating. His great skill militarily was retreating. He knew when to retreat, and he was good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was so well respected, and it helped that he was the richest man in the colonies,
and that he was so
marrying a very
tall.
rich widow.
I was going to say that his wife was the richest woman in the colony, wasn't it?
He married a rich widow and then took up whiskey making. Between those two things, he became very, very wealthy.
and you can't leave out the factor that he was so tall. He was the tallest man in the country.
Yeah. And a great dancer. The ladies loved him.
When we were touring with my parents, we were touring Mount Vernon. At Mount Vernon one time with my parents, the guide was telling us about, all these fantastic things. He was really going on about all the his wealth and how expensive this was and that was in the house and all this kind of thing. And my dad just blurts out, "Well, he married rich." He wasn't going to give him credit.
Yeah, well, if you go to Mount Vernon, you can buy his whiskey.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that he made whiskey.
It's a rye, actually, rye whiskey.
Well, he didn't. He didn't make it. His slaves made it.
His slaves,
right?
Made it, yeah. Well, and that's another thing that I actually had a history professor in college who made this case, and we had a lot of argument in our class because it was just so contrary to what we thought. But anyway, this professor all had made the case that a big part of the revolution was about defending slavery. And the Ken Burns series really gets into that a turning point and a tactical mistake by the British, even though the British created slavery, but they were offering freedom to slaves in the colonies to come join them in the fight, and there's lots of slaves took them up on it. I mean, there were slave revolts and plantations and everything, and that turned the plantation owners who had been sort of pro-British. They hadn't really bought into the revolution, and when the British did that and created all this disruption in the slave business, the plantation owners came rushing to the Continental Congress and started writing checks. And that was a big turning point for our side.
Most people don't realize how large a percentage of Black people were actually freemen at the earliest stages. Yeah, at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. We finally
tell someone that there were Black millionaires. It really surprises them. They did exist. And some of them owned slaves.
That reminds me of a funny thing. You remember Julian Bond? You remember Julian Bond?
Yeah.
Georgia. And he was a funny guy. And I was working in the Mondale campaign in Georgia. He was a supporter of Mondale. And we were at a fundraiser for rich, mostly Black donors in Atlanta. And we were standing off to the side, and I said, well, now who's that? And he told me who that was. And I said, but now I thought he was so and so. And he goes, Craig, he says, all those Black millionaires look alike. He was a funny guy.
I've spent so much time going over, for Black friends trying to identify their heritage and genealogy records. You get only so far back, and then you run into the earliest census where there are no names. You can only go by the slave schedules that were reported and the ages and sexes of the people as to whether they were white or Black or male or female, and their ages, to try and get someone past that stage. And then you have to go to DNA and hope you hit a gold mine. But it's fascinating work to try and find them.
Well, in the records, when I was into it, I noticed in the census, you could always tell when they had slaves in the house. Well, not slaves at that time, but servants, is they'd put in parentheses in for Negro, I hope.
Yes.
And
for mulatto.
And so you'd see, they would actually, and then they had I for Indian on some. I saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone who plays around with genealogy gets very specific about racial components within the household and the fields and everything else, just to try and identify them. And
we've worn out our critic. His final post: "You folks pat yourselves on your purity, integrity, and civility, but in practice you lack it." And then
he seems to have missed all of our criticism of the left.
And then his final post is out. He's out. Okay.
I am, you know, my only problem is I enjoy a decent argument, but I don't enjoy silliness. And you all know I've called folks on the left on it too. So
of course. Yeah. Some of those folks over there on my left-hand side are complete wackos.
But no, I think I've been kind of following that the American Revolution every once in a while on PBS, and it's got some interesting stuff that I didn't know.
It really does.
And he's done a good job of researching and so on. And of course, I think some of this is, as I get older, I realize just how bad my history education in high school was. You know, the prejudices. And I was thinking about just the thing of the French investing all that money is, you know, like Lafayette and some other Europeans that were in my history world, they came over out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah.
And you know that's not true. They were paid people, and probably France picked up the bill.
Well, and then you had the Germans on the British side. They were strictly mercenaries.
Yeah, that was, the Haitians were bad. They were mercenaries.
And they had those helmets.
Really great Polish people. Yeah,
there were some there too, yeah. Well, that's the thing that I think we don't get as much in our education, is that it was such a global affair, our revolution, you know, I mean, at least, you know, I mean, not just Europe, but I mean, all through the Caribbean also. I mean, it was kind of a global war, not just here.
Well, what we called, basically, it was the same war, but what we called the French and Indian War was France and Britain fighting, and that was 10 years earlier.
And that was a big reason France was so motivated to help us, is they wanted vengeance, they wanted retribution for having lost that conflict to Britain.
And that's why the loyalists were running up to Canada.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, another thing I learned is the British retreat from Lexington and Concord was so bloody. And I just remember that as being, you know, there's some shots were fired, 6 or 8 people got killed and everything. But the part of it I didn't know is how brutal it was for the British. The fighting just wasn't in Lexington and Concord. Then they retreated, they walked back to Boston. And on that route, the Colonials, it was a road that had forest on both sides, and the Colonials were able to hide, and they just slaughtered those British troops on the return to Boston. There were like 1,700, I think it was, and like 400 or 500 got killed just on that walk back to Boston. And we were up in Boston for Thanksgiving shortly after that, and went on a drive up through there. And the road that the British retreated on is still, it's much of it part of a national park. You could drive that road, and there's been so little development on it, you can really get a sense of what that was like. And they didn't just, and when they just wounded them, these were, you know, these Western Massachusetts characters were a pretty rough crowd, the Colonials, and they had hatchet, and they didn't talk about taking no prisoners. If they just wounded them, they went up and split their head open with a hatchet. It was brutal.
The colonials were the guerrilla fighters of their day. They were hanging out in the trees while the nice, neat British Army was marching in lockstep to their doom.
Yeah. That's the thing that comes across in Ken Burns' series is, just how bloody and brutal the fighting was. I mean, it was, I always think of it compared to the Civil War. I always thought of it as kind of a gentlemanly thing, but it was bad. And the disease, that was a big factor. Yeah.
That's one thing that the Outlander TV series goes into is a lot of the medical conditions of the day in the 1700s.
The smallpox and dysentery.
Yeah.
I can remember, I think it was Civil War stuff, and that looking at some of my ancestors, the units they fought in, and most of them were just in little regional militias, and they lost more people to disease than they did ever to bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
my uncle, who had all of our relatives' Civil War records until his second wife burned them. Anyway, he had a diary from one soldier, and I remember reading it, and it said, "Last night, somebody got snake bit." So they lost a man to like a water moccasin or something.
Wow.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to let you all go.
Yeah, let's see here. We've been at it 2 hours and 35 minutes for this.
Oh, we've just been sitting here like we're in the rest home, huh?
Well,
talking.
I mean, we tracked NATO, Ukraine. Looks like they're working toward a deal. I guess the elements basically are that Ukraine gives up on NATO but gets the European Union. And the question now is whether both sides retreat from the demilitarized zone or just Ukraine.
Well, notice I'm in my easy chair, so I can just sit back and relax today. I'm not at the desk.
Yeah, I noticed you're in a different room there.
Yeah, I got my new desk chair, which is pretty much the same. Anyway, goodbye, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
As always. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'm Lady Mau Mau, Craig's built-in emergency brake. If this wasn't enough for you, sign up for the newsletter. It's free, it's thoughtful, and it occasionally makes sense.